This is Ori Green, and how long have I known you, Ori? Oh, I don't even, a dozen years, a dozen years or so. I know her through Unscrewed Theater. I know this much about her business. I know that she does coaching, financial stuff, and you have done this presentation with other um, businesses around. I know that you've done that and that you have your own bookkeeping company. So I'm going to guess that you know what you're talking about when you talk about money, probably more than the rest of us, because we just spend the money and then we get the money, but we don't do it for a living.
I hope I know a little bit, and thank you. Yeah,
Yes, I'm really happy that you agreed to do this because I've had several people um, ask about having this kind of a conversation about help me with money, especially as as my needs change and my life changes. How can I do this and how can I do this better? So
right.
that's why I'm so glad that you're here, and we are recording this, but we will edit out any um, personal information if you need me to later. But for the most part, our Ori's just going to make us smart, and we're going to listen and be happy that she's doing it.
Hope so. Hopefully you'll be happy. Um, so thank you. So and this might be a little bit interactive, so be ready to unmute if you want to, if I ask a question and you're interested in answering, and or you also don't have to. It's no pressure. It's not that interactive. So I'm Ori. I'm a bookkeeper here in Tucson. I've been in business for a little over 3 years, I think, and I'm also a certified YNAB coach. And YNAB is an online platform that people use for budgeting and spending and managing finances. I'm not selling YNAB. I don't get anything if you sign up for YNAB. It's just how I coach. And so today we're going to talk kind of about the method of YNAB, but it doesn't mean that you need YNAB to do this method. So I'm going to ask, like, when you all think about finances and money, what kind of words come to mind?
Freedom, budget, um, management,
Hmm.
responsible.
All right. Anybody else want to share any words that come to mind?
Bills.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for a lot of people, some pretty negative words come to mind when they start to think about money and finances and budgeting. There's a lot of trauma uh, about money, trauma and fear and shame but money's a tool, right? Money is just a tool. And so if we learn how to use this tool properly, it can serve us. And that's not to say that, you can YNAB your way out of poverty, because you can't. That's a different conversation, different issue. But for folks who do have some money and, feel like they should be able to make their ends meet, this can be an incredibly good tool. And then what it can do is sort of change your point of view about money, and start to, maybe have some kinder words about it. So, what if when we thought about it, our money, we could get excited or hopeful or at peace or motivated? I mean, I think that's a really good goal for our finances. So what does a budget prepare you to do? It basically prepares you to spend, right? That's what money is for. It's for spending. And I know we talk about saving a lot, right? But saving is saving for something. It's not just to hoard it for hoarding it. It's for spending, whether it's, for retirement someday, or for vacation or a trip or rent or whatever it is. So budgeting is important, but the end goal is spending. And so, a lot of times people are asking themselves, am I going to make it to payday? How could I have seen that coming? That sometimes happens, I think, for folks when they're, get a bill. Why can't I get ahead? Why can't I spend my money on things I want? Where's it going to come from? Will I make it to payday? It's a question of desperation, right? When the car breaks down, or the dog gets sick, it creates uncertainty. And, you know, how could I have seen that coming? And a lot of people feel like they're kind of one paycheck away from disaster, which is really scary and a precarious place to be, and always wondering, why can't I get ahead? And that's a setup for frustration, right? You work really hard, but sometimes our money feels like it just flies out the window. And so we ask, you know, why can't I spend it on the things I want? You know, I'd have to just buy tires for my car, which is not fun. Or you stick to your plan, but sometimes things go wrong, and then you're up against it, right? Like you need to know, where's that money gonna come from? And all of that uncertainty, self-doubt, frustration, it can be resolved by doing one thing, and that's giving every dollar a job, right? It's a simple concept, and it yields a lot of power, and puts you in control of your spending, because you finally have some clarity about where your money is going, and all of those questions, you know, of fear, we're going to try to replace them with better questions that are going to help you give every dollar a job in an incredibly strategic way. So YNAB actually gives you 5 questions as you give every dollar a job. And the reality question helps you kind of get to payday with confidence. What does this money need to do before I get more money, before I'm paid again? Whether you're, you know, however your money comes in, what does this money need to do before I get more money? And you kind of build stability and ask, what bigger, less frequent spendings do I need to plan for, right? Like the car repair or vet or whatever it is. And when we ask ourselves, what can I set aside for next month's spending? You'll become resilient and financially, because it's sort of the antidote to fragility. It's about setting goals, right? What goals, large or small, do I want to prioritize? And that's going to help you finally do more of what you want to do with your money. And to stay on track of all of that, right, we have to be flexible, and we have to ask ourselves, what changes do I need to make, if any? And these 5 questions are how you give every dollar a job. And as you give every dollar a job and answer the 5 questions, you'll create greater awareness and intention around your spending, which is what I said. You know, these things, they create confidence and peace. And to me, I want to have peace around my finances. So there's a word that YNAB recently had, they're very excited about it, and they came up with this word, and I kind of have mixed feelings about it, because I don't know, I'm very literal, and so it's like not really a word. And so, but when you think about what it is, spendfulness it's a feeling of confidence, right? And it's peace around your spending, when your spending is aligned with what matters to you. And so when you give every dollar a job, that's the method for achieving that spendfulness, that sense of peace. And it allows you to love how you're spending your money and thrive well beyond money, because again, money is just a tool. It doesn't make us happy, but it can give us a life that it can be wonderful. And so it's all about applying awareness and intention to spending, right? And so spendfulness is a method, or give every dollar a job it's a method for achieving spendfulness, because spendfulness is a state of mind, right? It's allowing us to express ourselves and, you know, and really get to a place of those positive words around finances, as opposed to those scary negative words. So as you give every dollar a job, we're going to work through the 5 questions, and I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like. Okay. So will I make it to payday? If you're asking yourself a lot, like, am I going to be okay until more money comes? You're looking at your bank balance, right? But your bank balance isn't giving you enough information to spend confidently, right? It just tells you where your money is and how much you have, but it doesn't tell you how much is earmarked for rent and utilities and car repairs and, you know, groceries. So you don't really know what you can safely spend your money on just looking at your bank balance. So if we instead ask ourselves, what does this money need to do before I'm paid again? It grounds you in reality, and it gets you to payday, right? And without reality, you know, these things can happen. And that sort of just becomes that cycle, right, of fear and anxiety and shame and all of those things. So as you give every dollar a job, what you're really doing is you're taking the money you have, right? And you add it up, and then you decide how you're going to spend all your money before you spend any of your money. So it's making a choice. And I'll show you an example. So let's take $3,500 that was sitting in the checking account, right? And let's give them jobs. And let's ask, what does this money need to do before more money comes? Before I'm paid again, what does this money need to do? And so here's a list of examples for we all have some things that we have to spend money on. So let's say mortgage is $2,200. So I'm going to set that money aside from that, right? That leaves us still $1,300 that needs a job. And then the phone bill is $100. Now I'm down to $1,200. Groceries, always need groceries. We spend a lot. I have 2 kids, even though they don't, one of them doesn't even live at home. We still pay, spend a lot on groceries. So let's say $600 a month. That's so low. We spend much more than that on groceries, but this is just for an example. So gas, right? We need to get to work or get to activities or get out and about. So let's say we put $250 aside for that. And now we still have $350 left, right? You see at the top. So eating out, let's say $200 for eating out. And this is all that needs to happen before I get paid again, right? And I have $150 left. So we have movie plans. So let's put 60 there, and we have 90 left. We're almost done. We'll put it into clothing. You may, that's not where I would put it because I'm total schlumper and I don't really care about clothes. But that zero at the top in the blue tells me every dollar has a job, right? So now we know that all of our money has been given jobs, and I don't have to rely on my bank balance to make a spending decision. I just check my plan, right? So I look at my list. Time to pay the mortgage, check. I've given my money a job to pay the mortgage. I know I'm good. How much did I, put to groceries? $600. Now I know when I go to the grocery store what I can spend on groceries, and maybe if things are a little bit more tight, I don't buy some of the more fancy stuff, or or I'm a little bit more careful and just buying for the meals that I need, until I get paid again. But right? You have clarity about it. So let's say, we need winter hat and gloves. I'm freezing today. It's ridiculous, but whatever. So here we need, hat and sunscreen and, bathing suits, whatever. So let's say $90. We're good because I answered, what does that money need to do before I'm paid again? I'm covered till payday. And that's how spendfulness starts, right? You start to feel that sense of confidence growing in the right way because you start to have major clarity about what your money needs to do. So with reality, you've prioritized, you can pay your bills on time, and you spend confidently. So the next question that a lot of people ask is, how could I have seen that coming, right? And we hope our expenses are going to stay relatively the same like this, right? In this little graphic, this is how much we spend every single month. But we know realistically, that's never going to happen. But so let's say blue is rent, the same every month. The light purple block is car payment. It's all nice. It's predictable. We know exactly what's happening. But then the dog gets sick, right? Or the cat or the llama. My nephew was just at the library in Connecticut and there was a llama there. And the car breaks down, right, in May. And what happens is we start to say, how could I have seen that coming? And we turn to debt, right? We can eliminate that question from our vocabulary completely by just using this question instead, right? So we say, what larger, less frequent spending do I need to prepare for? We need to plan because those things are going to happen. They just are. We're going to have car repairs that need to happen, vet bills, medical bills, holidays, all of those things are going to happen whether or not we plan for them. So if we can prepare for it, we're gonna be in much better shape. And so without stability, you're always worried that one big crisis away from disaster. And it's like a roller coaster. And every time something happens unexpectedly, it feels like a huge emergency. And that's not a great way to live, right? So instead of getting hit with the big surprises, we're going to break them down. So look what we do here. So we're going to break, into smaller bite-sized chunks. So right, if you spend $1,200 a year on the holidays, just setting aside $100 a month, it'll be there when shopping day arrives, right? And it works with any amount. If you spend $600, set aside $50. The amount is really up to you. the goal is to break it down into small chunks that you can easily manage every single month. And so if you know that a huge car bill or vet bill is going to happen, it doesn't have to ruin your month, right? And when it does happen, and that's what spendfulness gives you. You become your sort of financial hero, superhero. We're financial superheroes. I'm always looking for a reason to be a superhero because I love superhero movies. Okay. So saving for non-monthly spending helps smooth out the ups and downs of those bills, right? And it brings stability. But since that money will be spent eventually, it doesn't actually help you to save more money. You're still living paycheck to paycheck with no real cushion. So you might still be left wondering, why can't, months, oh, this is if with stability we have these things. But so you might be asking yourself, why can't I ever get ahead? This is the first time using this slide set, so I'm a little, so it's good to see where I'm like, oh, that shouldn't have been there. Okay, why can't I get ahead? And we often refer to that feeling as this sort of paycheck to paycheck cycle. We've all heard about that. Not everybody lives that, but even if you're not living paycheck to paycheck, it can still feel like we can't get ahead. We just can't get ahead. And it's exhausting, right? And it just makes everything feel sort of scary around money as opposed to like, I've got this. So here's how it works, right? All the bills come in, you're sitting around, you're waiting for the money to arrive. The money arrives, you pay your bills, and that's how a lot of people do it. But there's a better way to do this. So instead, what if we started with a pile of money? And that pile of money could be big, it could be small, but that's your pile of money. And you're waiting for the bills to roll in. So if you feel frustrated having to sort of time paychecks to bills, it's understandable, but there's a better way because this system helps eliminate the cycle because timing paychecks to bills is completely unnecessary administrative task. It's not a healthy and it's not a sustainable way to get to some sort of clarity and peace around your finances. So you can ask yourself this question instead. You can say, what can I set aside for next month's spending? This is a question of resilience, right? Without resilience, you don't have time to respond to setbacks. You're always timing it and you're going to lose progress. You just are. So if we set aside some money for next month's spending, the goal is to always get a month ahead of your spending. So instead of being reactive, we're being proactive. And as you give every dollar a job, you're going to ask yourself that question. And in the beginning, it could just be a few dollars for the next month. It doesn't have to be a lot, but my guess is we all have the ability to be mindful about, all right, let's put a little bit away for next month. Okay. So, first it's 100, then it's 200, and then maybe you get a tax refund and you maybe use some of that to get ahead. And eventually what happens is you'll be setting like entire paychecks aside for the sole purpose of taking care of next month's spending. So it's being proactive and you want to like get your money to be old, right? The money that we're spending now is money that we earned last month. And once you're there, you don't want to ever go back because it's this cushion, it saves you this cushion of time and stress and money to deal with things as they happen. And it's not perfect. And, but it is a way of really being I don't love the word control because I really do believe, sort of 12-steppy, we're all powerless, all that kind of stuff. But this does give you some control over how you make choices with your spending, right? So, with getting a month ahead, with essentials covered, right? Monthly bills, non-monthly expenses like the car and the vet and blah, 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 and getting a month ahead, then you're ready to start focusing on what's next, right? So we start setting goals and spending on what brings you joy. But that may feel out of reach. So this is sort of just talking about what we gain. So you may be wondering if, you start doing that, if you're not using a system like this, you may be wondering, why can't I spend my money on the things I want, right? With all the time we spend earning and working, it'd be nice if more of that money was just for us, for treats, for fun, for things that make us feel like life is meaningful and purposeful, and joyous. And it feels like a lot of our money just flies out the door. So then when you catch your breath, there's not much left, right? But you could turn it around by focusing on it before any money goes out the door, right? So You start thinking about it when you give every dollar a job, right? That's the whole point of this. And so instead of saying, why can't I spend my money on the things I want? We can ask, what goals, large or small, do I want to prioritize? This is a creation question. And without creation, money feels like a chore, something to manage, and there's less, it's not fun. Spending doesn't feel fun. It feels hard and scary and frustrating and sort of disappointing, and you limit, yourself. So let's say you want to take a vacation in 6 months, right? And you know you're going to need $1,200. Each month, you're going to set aside $200. And, maybe that's not doable for you. So maybe you can't take a vacation in 6 months, but you could take one in a year, right? And you set aside in January $200. Okay. And then February, you set aside $200. And every month, the amount I have will grow as I add $200 to it. Get to 6 and 8 and 1,200, 1,000 and 1,200 by June. And then before you know it, the money's there and you can spend it without any guilt because you've planned for it. You gave that money the job of going on vacation with you and then not coming home with you again, but you gave that money a job. So could you imagine just like going on vacation and just enjoying it, right? Not worrying about how big is the credit card bill going to be when you get back. That's spendfulness. And as you work towards your goals, you remember life doesn't go as planned, right? So let's talk about how to adapt when things change, because life always is going to throw you curveballs. That's just how it works. So here, I can see I already don't like this slide here. With creation, money is an opportunity. Feel more joy. You're building the life you want. Okay. So instead, we're going to be asking ourselves, instead of asking, where's the money going to come from, right? If we plan to spend 200, but we actually spent 227.54, instead of asking, where's the money going to come from, we're going to ask ourselves, what changes do I need to make, if any? Hang on, I just want to make sure I said everything I wanted to say. I do. So the solution, this is about flexibility, right? This question focuses on flexibility. What changes do I need to make? And when, you get something that you didn't plan for, you're ready to do that. And without flexibility, I think a lot of people feel like failures around money and, and have that sort of sense of trauma and shame. And money is really triggering for a lot of people. So the goal is to reprioritize and reassign, right? So if you spent too much on groceries, that's okay. You can adjust, because when you first made your plan, remember, you used all the information you had on hand at the time. It's just your best guess, right? Of what job, how much to give each dollar, what job, right? So it was your best guess. So, and then when you get new information, you have to adjust your plan, and that's okay. A budget is very much a living, breathing thing, and it's constantly getting changed. And spendfulness is a feeling of control over your money. And when it's clear what needs to be done, you can do it with confidence. So let's say you set aside 600 for groceries. Remember, we did this with the best information we had at the time. But you spend 650. But there's a surplus in eating out, because we had given $150 the job of being your eating out money. So you move the 50 from eating out to groceries, the problem is solved, and now you have a little less for eating out. So next time you go out, you want to go eat out, you got to look at your budget and say, how much do I have in the eating out job category? And maybe you go someplace a little less expensive, or maybe you eat at home, or whatever it is. So with flexibility, we have this ability to spend and make changes without any shame. And it's a problem solving tool. So, oh my God, I can't believe, so it is 6:30. So I'm like basically almost done. This went a lot faster than I thought it would, but that's okay. I also talk really fast when I get nervous, so I apologize. But giving every dollar a job, it means that your money is working towards what matters most to you. And when we ask those questions, by answering those questions, we can address immediate needs, right? We plan for less frequent expenses that are gonna happen, even if we don't want them to, they're going to happen. We build stability by preparing for next month. We prioritize meaningful goals, and we can stay flexible when life changes, because life is constantly changing. And so it's about taking control of your money with intention, and so that every dollar has purpose and supports your priorities, and everybody's priorities are going to be different. So this list of questions can be really your superpower, right? When it comes to managing money, because they help you stay grounded in reality, because the reality is the reality. right? Data is data. We have what we have. They build stability, and they help create a path to your goals. But at the same time, staying flexible enough to handle surprises that are going to happen. And then by coming back to these questions regularly, you're not just managing money, you're actively shaping your life with purpose. So that actually is my official presentation, but I would love to stop sharing, and if people feel comfortable, uh, you know, maybe taking, maybe turning on their cameras if they want to, no pressure, but and asking questions and talking about this stuff, because for me, I didn't really tell my story about how I got into this budgeting. So I'm going to just quickly tell it, because I just wasn't sure how long this was going to be, and I didn't want to make you all stay longer than you had planned to stay. But I got divorced about 8 years ago. And I was very, very lucky in that I have 2 kids, they're 18 and 21, almost 19 and 22. But I was lucky in that I got to be a stay-home mom. My ex-husband, he didn't make a ton of money, but we lived very frugally. We had a small house. It was like 1,300 square feet. It was so cute and wonderful. We were mindful about our money. Like, I got to stay home and I loved it. And then I started a business. I used to be a professional organizer, and so I did that for a while. But it was never like a full-time thing. And I never had a full-time job since I had kids. And then I got divorced. And I was very lucky. I had some support from my parents, or I'm not really sure what I would have done. But guess what? I started having to figure out all my finances on my own. My ex-husband had always done it, not because he was better than I was, but because it was so stressful to talk about that we would always get in a fight, and it didn't work. So he just kind of did it, and I didn't really know anything. So when I got divorced and I was living in a house, with my kids, I would go to the grocery store and I just buy what I want, because that's how I always had done it. I wasn't going crazy. But then the credit card bill would come, and I'd be like, oh my God, like, I don't have enough money to pay this credit card. And I don't even know how I discovered this platform, YNAB, probably on Facebook. I feel like I discover everything on Facebook. And I signed up for it because I was pretty desperate to stop. I didn't want to pay interest. It pissed me off, right? Like, that's my money. And I was getting scared. Like, this is, I caught it before it got out of control, but I work with clients who have just unfathomable amounts of debt. And it's scary to be in that position. And so I got this figured out. I watched videos, I read articles, and I just figured it out. And I changed my perspective, and I got to the place where now I never pay credit card interest ever. I put a lot on my credit card because I get miles, but I immediately pay it off. I probably pay my credit card bill every week just to get it down to zero. And we're not, huge wealthy people. We make enough, maybe more than enough, but not insane amounts. But we live within our means, and we live with intention because we know exactly what job our money has to do. So it's a huge gift. And so when I became a bookkeeper and I found out that this YNAB had a coaching program, I was like, oh my, yes, so I went through the whole training for it because it changed my life. And so I felt like I had a gift to share with other people. And I don't do a ton of coaching. My bread and butter is my bookkeeping business. But I really like teaching these kind of workshops and talking with people about this, because people are stuck and they don't know where to go. So I guess what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is maybe just open it up for conversation. Gail, does that seem reasonable? Or
Yeah, and I know that I have a comment and a question. I love your story, by the way. That was delightful. I could tell that you're really passionate about this, and it was very interesting to hear when you said, you put money aside, and it took me back to my childhood. My parents they grew up in the Depression. And that's when they were born, and so they kept their money. They did their budget, but they would put the money in little envelopes, and each envelope said what it was supposed to be for. And then they put it up in the kitchen cabinet on the top shelf where I could reach it. They counted on the kids being not going to steal it. But, they knew every penny that was in those envelopes. The money was not in the bank. It was right there. And it could have been the 70s already. Yeah, the late 60s and the 70s. So we're way past the depression, and checking accounts are safe. But that's what they did. And so that's how they set money aside. And
They gave it
and
jobs. They gave all their money jobs.
they did. They did because they knew what it was like to be without. And I don't know how they came up with that system, because it's not a thing that we ever learned in school. You know, when we had home ec and we learned how to make that apron, and maybe fried chicken or whatever you did in home ec, but they didn't teach us how to do money. And I hope they do that now. I hope they are teaching kids some
They don't.
common sense about money. They aren't. Oh
No,
dear God in heaven. I know that
no.
I try to do it with my grandchildren. But I have lived paycheck to paycheck. I have would have been happy if I had enough money to get paycheck to paycheck as a single parent for a very long time. And so I am very, very blessed that at this juncture, I'm the same as you. I use my credit cards for everything, and I pay off the balance at the end of the month so I can get the points, because it's just all about the points. But I'm blessed and I'm lucky that way, because I figured out how to change my life about 20 years ago. So that's my blaggity blah. So when you say, I'm going to just ask you this. So when you say set money aside, it makes perfect sense. I'm going to give this money. This money belongs to eating out, and I'm going to set it aside. Is it physically setting it aside, or do you?
I mean, you could keep it on the shelf in the kitchen. I wouldn't. We recently got robbed, and if I had all our money in the house, I would have been in big trouble. We're fine. Everybody's fine. They took all my jewelry, whatever, and then my family all got together and gave me jewelry to show that they love me, which was nice. But whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is I would never do it that way. It's really putting it aside is just a mental thing, but you can't remember, right? And so remember I said before, you can't use your bank account balance to make decisions about spending. So how I showed you, I mean, so YNAB does this, that's the whole platform is for that, but you don't need YNAB to do this system. You could use an Excel spreadsheet. And the more you track how you're spending, the more data you have to figure out, thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming, Claudia.
The more you can decide with correctly about how much you're going to need. You know what you need for mortgage or rent. You know what you need generally for electricity. Maybe in the summer it's different than the winter, and gas and water, and generally how much you spend on groceries. But the more you track your money, the more data you start to have to make those decisions more carefully and more thoughtfully. And so, but then it's about making sure that what you have, all the money you have, has been given jobs. And so then you're looking at your budget as opposed to looking at like your bank account, which may look like it has a lot of money, but if all of those things have already jobs that they need to do, and then you just were like, well, I have money, I'm going to go, buy whatever, you're going to get into trouble. And a lot of people do that.
I know if the ATM gives them a piece of paper that says they have money, they think they have money because they don't keep a checkbook. I have an Excel spreadsheet, and that's the way I've done it for about 10 years. So I can forecast mine out for about 3 months, and I know when I need to shuffle money around. But I know that not everybody can do that, and not everybody has, oh my God, what's the name of it? QuickBooks. You don't have to have QuickBooks either to do any of this nonsense.
No, I mean, YNAB is a different platform, but you truly could do this in a notebook if you needed to.
Right. So I guess that was my question. So putting it aside, everybody would do it differently, right?
Everybody would put different amounts aside for different things, partly for things that we need, because we all spend money on some things that are the same, right? We have to have a place to live. We have to, get around. We have, a lot of us have animals or kids, whatever. So it's going to look different for every person, but it's the same principle of giving those dollars a job, right? It's about what is this money that I have? It's asking those questions, right? What does the money I have to do before I get more money? What bigger spending do I need to plan for? Those questions are very, very useful and very powerful. What can I set aside for next month? And you said you have about 3 months set aside, which is brilliant. It sounds like you're already doing this. And then what goals do I want to prioritize? Like maybe it's like I just want to get ahead so that I have an emergency fund. Maybe it's I want to go on a trip. Maybe it's I just want to buy something special for somebody on their birthday. And then what changes do I have to make to how I'm doing it? Because if you're doing it the same and it's not getting where you want to go, something has to change. or you'll just keep ending up doing the same thing over and over again. And that's can be very frustrating and scary.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and
how I got to where I am, is because I was so broke for so long. Once I got to the point that I wasn't broke, I said, I'm never going to be that
yeah,
then. Because I found out that worrying and fretting and stewing and didn't fix anything. All it did was make me crazy. So I needed to be proactive. So does anybody have any questions? You should be able to unmute yourself if you want to ask Ori anything about anything.